Star Wars. Andor is a Disney Plus original created by Tony Gilroy, following the story of a thief-turned-rebel and spy, Cassian Andor. Although the show was just released last year, it is a prequel to the movies Rogue One in 2016 and the original Star Wars of 1977. So, without further ado, this is episodes 1 to 6 of the political, science, and spy fiction series, Andor. 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, a man named Cassian Andor goes to a brothel in the Preox Morlana corporate zone in Morlana 1 to look for his younger sister Carrie. At this time, the brothel keeper entertains him as soon as she sees him, pissing off 2 sentry guards, one of whom is a squad commander. But Cassian has no time to deal with any of them, so he gets straight to the point and asks the keeper if a Canary girl is working at the brothel. According to the keeper, there was indeed a Canary girl that worked there, but she already left a few months back. Cassian asks for the name of the girl, yet the keeper points out that nobody is giving their real names at the brothel. Due to this, Cassian leaves the brothel empty-handed. But to his surprise, the 2 Imperial guards follow him outside and ask for his identification, stating that outsiders are prohibited in the corporate zone. Cassian knows that the guards are just power-tripping and will extort money from him, so he fights back as soon as he gets the chance. However, he accidentally kills one of the guards, leaving him with no other choice but to take out the other one as well. The following day, the incident reaches Chief Hine due to the report made by Deputy Inspector Karn. Unexpectedly, Hine orders Karn to make another incident report, which writes the incident as a case of an unfortunate misadventure. Hine says the guards were in a brothel and drinking, which are both prohibited for the likes of them. So, to keep their good image, he wants Karn to fabricate a story on how the 2 guards died helping someone. However, despite being given a direct order by the chief, Karn proceeds with his investigation. Later on, he orders the release of a bulletin that a Canary man is wanted for questioning. Meanwhile, in a free trade sector in the Morlani system called Ferrix, a droid named B2EMO, also known as B, heads out to a ship in the scrapyard, waking Cassian up. Speaking of whom, he is dreaming about his sister Carrie and the time when a Republic-era vessel crashed not far away from their village that was full of kids and young adults back in Canary. Upon waking up, Cassian immediately patches up his knuckles while asking B if somebody came looking for him last night. According to B, his friend Brasso was looking for him, but his adoptive mother, Maarva, said that he was out looking for trouble again. Hearing this, Cassian tells B not to tell anyone that he sees him or that he knows where he is. After that, he meets with Brasso and asks him to cover up for him if anybody asks where he was last night. Then he goes to his other friend and also ex-lover, Bix, to tell her that he has an item that her buyer will love, referring to an untraceable NS9 Starpath unit. Cassian insists that he's in dire need of credits, so he convinces Bix to call her buyer right away. In that sense, she goes to Salmon's and uses the hidden communicator to reach her buyer. Shortly, Cassian bumps into Nurchi, who's asking for the payment for his debt. Yet he just reasons out that he's still working on it and heads straight to the shipyard to change the ID chip log of the ship he used last night. There, he's spotted by Pegla, who refuses to lend him the ship once more, not wanting to get any trouble from his boss. Sometime later, Cassian gets home and Maarva alerts him about the bulletin that was released by the authorities, meaning that it's spread all over Ferrix already. She asks who else knows that he was from Canary, but Cassian swears that only the people he trusts know about it. Just then, B informs Cassian that Bix is trying to contact him. Because of that, he goes to meet her and she immediately asks what he did. After explaining what happened, Cassian says that he will just sell her the item because he needs the credits as soon as possible for him, Maarva, and B to get out of Ferrix. However, Bix points out that the buyer is already coming and calling the deal is off the table. Due to that, he will have to wait until morning to get his credit. Unfortunately, Bix's current partner, Tim, has already reported Cassian to the authorities after seeing them, thinking that he and Bix are getting back together. Hence, Pre-Mor guards led by Sergeant Most under the command of Karn go to Ferrix the next day, just as a mysterious old man. Meanwhile, Maarva goes into Cassian's room and finds his old weapon. In a flashback, young Cassian went with a group to check it out, leaving Carrie behind. Arriving at the crash site, they see several dead bodies lying around, so their leader went down to get a closer look. However, she didn't notice that there was still one crew member that was alive, causing her to die as he shot her. This caused the other kids to attack the man until he was no longer breathing. Acting quickly, the kids took their leader back to their village, not noticing that young Cassian stayed behind. As it turns out, Cassian went inside the ship out of curiosity and started venting his anger. At that time, Maarva and her late husband, Clem, found Cassian. They were looting the ship before the authorities could show up when Maarva unexpectedly took Cassian despite Clem's protest, stating that the kids' village would be in trouble because they killed a Republic officer. Going back to the present, Bix greets the old man named Luthen, who turns out to be the buyer. She informs him of Cassian's trouble, so Luthen wastes no time and goes to meet him immediately. At the same time, the Pre-Mor guards are getting undesirable looks from the locals of Ferrix. This then just gets worse when they rudely enter Maarva's house and start questioning the old woman about Cassian's whereabouts. Yet, Maarva doesn't get intimidated by their uniforms and keeps her mouth shut. However, Cassian contacts her through B at a very bad time as Karn, and the other guards hear him. After locating where he is, Karn leaves 2 guards to keep an eye on Maarva and heads out to capture Cassian. Seeing this, Salman's son Lilman tells his father about it, who then alerts Bix next. She's about to warn him when Tim tries to stop her, making her realize that it was him who ratted Cassian out. Salman, on the other hand, rushes outside and starts banging metal scraps in a pattern that is followed and copied by other people as if they're warning everybody that something terrible is about to happen. Not long after, Bix runs into some Pre-Mor guards, and because she's running and acting suspiciously according to them, they restrain her. Later on, Tim witnesses this and asks the guards what is happening. One of them warns him to stop, but as he continues to approach Bix, he gets shot by another guard, killing him in an instant. Due to that, the guard that shot him is sent back to their ship and is ordered to get it into the air. However, he doesn't realize that their pod has been anchored to a large metal scrap, causing it to get caught on a building and crash. Concurrently, Luthen just arrives at the factory where Cassian is waiting for him. The two start negotiating for the price until Luthen asks how he stole the item from a naval base. In turn, Cassian points out that it's actually easy to steal from the Empire because they don't really bother looking at others, especially those below their status. They're too busy looking proud of themselves that they just don't care. At this time, Luthen finally reveals that he came to Ferrix for Cassian and not the item, stating that he knows things about him like how his adoptive father, Clem, was hanged by a power-tripping Imperial guard. Hearing this, Cassian pulls out his gun and suddenly becomes cautious around Luthen, questioning who he is. Without answering the question, the old man invites Cassian to come with him to fight the Empire for real. Just then, they hear the guards coming and realize that they're being surrounded. Luckily, Luthen rigs the door on his way in and it explodes in the guards' faces. A shootout then takes place as Cassian attempts to go back for the item. Luthen tells him to forget about it and they escape to find a vehicle to go to the old man's ship. Karn and the others get the report about Cassian and Luthen's retaliation, so they take their positions and wait for the two to appear. But without Karn noticing, the two suddenly emerge and restrain him. A car then bursts out of a garage and the guards empty their guns as they fire into it until it explodes. But to their surprise, it turns out to be a decoy as Cassian and Luthen actually ride a speeder to Luthen's ship. Looking around, Karn stares into the Pre-Mor guards in utter defeat as his dream of putting Cassian to justice just crumbles before his eyes. In the meantime, Luthen is taking Cassian to Aldhani. At this point, Cassian clarifies that he just agreed to go with him to save himself and not because he's joining his side. Luthen then points out that the Imperial guards will keep hunting him, so it's better to join the fight that has a cause. And to further convince him, the old man says he will pay him. Intrigued, Cassian asks what the job is. According to Luthen, he will be part of a team that will steal the quarterly payroll for an entire Imperial sector, and completing it will get him 200,000 credits in return. Meanwhile, in Coruscant, which is the capital of the galaxy, the officers of the Imperial Security Bureau are currently having a meeting. Major Partagast, the head Imperial officer of the ISB, compares rebellion to disease and calls the ISB the healthcare providers. Later on, he brings up the incident on Ferrix and asks Lieutenant Blevin for an update since Morlana 1 is his sector. In turn, Blevin notes that several people died, properties were damaged, and a recovered Imperial Starpath unit was initially stolen from them. Hearing this, Lieutenant Dedra takes an interest as the Starpath unit turns out to be stolen from her sector. After confirming this, she asks Partagaz to give her permission to investigate, but Blevin insists that Morlana 1 is his sector. Yet, Dedra points out that she's been noticing a pattern in all the recent thefts in the Empire, stating that it can be used to fuel anti-Imperial activities. However, since she has no concrete evidence just yet, Partagaz denies her requests but tells her to keep on digging. Going back to Cassian and Luthen, they finally reach Aldhani. Luthen asks Cassian to come up with an alias that he will be using in the mission, and he says Clem with no hesitation. After that, the old man hands him a necklace with a Quadi signet, which is a sky stone for a pendant, saying that it serves as his down payment. He notes that it costs more than 50,000 credits and that he should return it to him at the end of the mission. After that, Luthen goes out to talk to a woman named Vel, the leader of the Aldhani mission. As the old man anticipated, Vel argues about it, stating that they will conduct the mission in 3 days, so putting in an additional person will be a challenge for the whole team. However, Luthen doesn't give her much of a choice and introduces Cassian to him as Clem. Then he takes his leave while Vel and Cassian head to the camp. There he meets the other members of the team, who are Cinta, Nemik, Skeen, Terramin, and an Imperial Guard Lieutenant Gorn. As expected, most of them doubt if Cassian will be of any use, but Nemik is just happy that more people are starting to fight against the Empire. After settling down, the group fills Cassian in with a mission. According to them, the Aldhani garrison is a depot for supplies, weapons, and the payroll for the entire Imperial sector. Their target is the payroll, and they will enter the facility as the men posing as the guards, while the ladies will sneak their way in. By taking advantage of a celestial event called the Eye of Aldhani, where 50 meteor showers happen all at once, they will enter, steal, and escape without any of the Imperial guards noticing them until it's too late. Concurrently, in the corporate security headquarters in Morlana 1, Karn, Mosk, and even the clueless Hein are fired because of what happened to Ferrix. In addition to that, Morlana 1 is now under permanent Imperial authority. Afterward, Karn goes home to his mother, who greets him with a slap and a hug. In the meantime, back in Coruscant, Luthen cleans himself up and starts wearing a wig, fancy robe, and jewelry. It is then revealed that he is actually rich and an owner of a prestigious art gallery, and uses this identity as a facade to cover up his involvement in the rebellion. Another notable person that is secretly part of the rebellion is Senator Mon. Together, they're secretly conversing on how to manage the flow of the budget of the rebellion. But this time, Mon tells Luthen that she needs to be more careful than she already is, because she knows that her driver is a spy from the ISB. As it turns out, her account was audited, and it is discovered that there is an unexplained 400,000 credit missing, which she actually donated to the rebellion. Due to that, Mon asks Luthen if she can ask somebody she knows for help, yet he declines. In turn, the senator insists that it's the only way for her to keep helping them while staying in power to keep the fight in the higher league. The next day in Aldhani, Cassian wakes up and finds out that all of his belongings are missing. As it turns out, Vel orders Skeen to go through his things for anything suspicious. Luckily, the Skystone necklace is in his pocket, so Skeen didn't see it. Later on, Nemik approaches Cassian and shares his ideals with him. For him, what they are doing is very important. According to Nemik, the Empire seeks power, hence they utilize everything to oppress people. But in the rebellion, they fight to seek nothing but freedom, pointing out that it is the most natural thing in the world, contrary to the unnatural state of control that the Empire wants. Skeen then tells Cassian that Nemik is actually writing his own manifesto. A little later, they start rehearsing acting as an Imperial Guard, with Terramin posing as their commanding officer. The following morning, they start traveling to the Aldhani garrison. On their way, Cassian asks Vel how an Imperial Guard like Gorn joined the rebellion. According to her, Gorn fell in love with a local woman once, but she lost her because of the Empire. Since then, he lost his will to serve the Empire, so he decided to join the rebellion. At this point, Vel points out that everyone has their own rebellion. Shortly, while the group is resting, Skeen sneaks behind Cassian and takes the necklace from him. Showing it to everyone, Skeen calls him a liar and says that the pendant of his necklace is worth 30,000, doubting his true intentions in joining their group. Vel tries to stop him, but he insists on knowing the truth. Cassian, on the other hand, threatens to kill Skeen if he will not return the necklace, but Terramin is trying to stop him as well. They only stop when Nemik warns them that a ship is coming from the valley that is heading to the garrison. Due to this, Skeen throws back the necklace to him and warns him that they're not done yet. Because of this, Cassian reveals to them that he's being paid to join them, not wanting to keep looking over his shoulder for Skeen. As expected, this surprises them, so they ask Vel about it, which she eventually confirms. But since there's no backing out now, they continue on their way to the garrison to finish the mission. And at nightfall, the group finally reaches the garrison and lights up the signal so Gorn will know that they are now ready. Skeen also apologizes to Cassian by telling him about his brother that was killed by Imperial guards. Since then, he starts hating the Empire, so this fight is really personal for him as well as everybody else. Afterward, Vel tells Cassian that Terramin will be in charge of them from here on, as she and Cinta will take their leave now. When the sun rises, Nemik approaches Cassian and tells him that he wasn't able to fall asleep, and he's nervous that he will not be at his best when he needs it the most. Cassian, on the other hand, tells him that the excitement and adrenaline will kick in later and he will feel very energized. He also says that if they successfully finish the mission, he will be able to rest finally. Meanwhile, at the garrison, Commandant J-Hold notes that the Danis, referring to the locals of Aldhani, are the type of people that are easy to manipulate. He tells the colonel that for the past years, there were 15,000 pilgrims, but they are now down to less than 100. As it turns out, this is the last year that the locals will be allowed to go to the valley to celebrate the Eye. While listening to this, Gorn's anger is fueled by remembering the love of his life. Afterward, he asks Gorn if they are now prepared for the festival, in which the lieutenant assures him that everything is set according to plan. J-Hold then insists that the night must be perfect. Going back to the group, Taramin and Nemik are testing the communication line with Vel and Cinta. As it turns out, the ladies are on the other part of the river, waiting for their turn to swoop in. Subsequently, the men start to move and Cassian notices that Taramin is very used to giving orders. And to his surprise, Skeen reveals to him that Taramin was a former stormtrooper and that it was chaos when he first joined because they massacred Cinta's whole family. At this time, the meteors start passing over one by one. The Danis also are arriving, so Gorn orders his men to make sure that they welcome the locals peacefully. Not long after, Cassian, Nemik, Taramin, and Skeen are now in position, dressed as Imperial soldiers that will be escorting the Danis. Inside the garrison, J-Hold struggles to put on his sash due to his fat stomach, which is always full. He then sees his son not wearing his Imperial blouse, but the boy says that he doesn't want to wear it. He also states that he's sick, which is then backed up by his mother. However, J-Hold doesn't care about them and insists that they will do as they were told. Outside, the Danis finally arrive at the valley and they are greeted by Gorn. At this point, Gorn orders the soldiers to settle in for the night and enjoy the show, reminding them not to bother the locals. Meanwhile, he orders Taramin's unit to escort J-Hold and his family, finally putting their plan into action. Shortly, the commandant, accompanied by his family and the colonel, exchanges goat skins with the elder of the Danis. After that, they go back inside the garrison, thinking that they will have a very good night feasting at a dining table while watching the Eye. But as the elder of Danis burns the skin they give, Cassian and the others point their guns at them, just in time for Vel and Cinta to mess with the garrison's communicator. The colonel then notices that Nemik is shaking, so he points his gun at him, demanding that they let the boy go. Unexpectedly, he is shot dead by Cinta. Just then, the Danis start their celebration, just as the group takes control of the control room and holds J-Hold's family and other guards captive. Vel tells J-Hold that he will be helping them to load the credits into the ship and that his family will die if he tries to go against them in any way. But if he cooperates, everyone will walk away with their lives. Subsequently, they all go down the vault to collect the credits except for Cinta, who is left to guard the hostages. Arriving at the vault, they find the guards gambling, so they also order them to work and load the credits into the ship. J-Hold also tells them to cooperate, stating that they had his family. At first, everything seemed to be going so well. Cassian and Nemik prepare the ship for the escape, and even Gorn goes down to the vault, revealing his allegiance to the rebellion to J-Hold. However, a corporal intercepts Cinta's and Nemik's channel, hearing them exchanging updates, so he discovers that something is going on in the vault. Due to that, he takes several guards there. Seeing this, Gorn tries to lie their way out of this, but as the corporal sees J-Hold having a heart attack due to tiredness, he realizes that Gorn has betrayed the Empire. At this moment, a shootout between the rebels and the Imperial guards takes place. Unfortunately, Gorn gets killed as the corporal shoots him while he's distracted by the dying commandant. Taramin also gets killed as Skeen fails to provide him cover while he is trying to run for the ship. Aside from them, Vel and Skeen manage to board the ship before it takes off. However, the sudden launch causes a crate of credits to crash into Nemik. Acting quickly, Vel gives him a med spike to give him a temporary boost. Then he guides Cassian into flying them right through the Eye, away from the chasing TIE ships of the Empire. Meanwhile, Cinta successfully sneaks out of the garrison while everyone is busy watching the celestial spectacle. Although it's a successful mission, Nemik is still in critical condition. Vel and Skeen argue because Vel wants to continue escaping while Skeen states that they need to try to save Nemik. Cassian then chooses to save Nemik as he's the one piloting the ship, taking him to the doctor that Skeen knows. Unfortunately, Nemik still doesn't make it. At the same time outside, Skeen suggests to Cassian that they should just run away and split the money, revealing he's not really on the mission for the cause and that story about his brother was a lie. Because of that, Cassian shoots him dead immediately. Afterward, he goes inside the tent and discovers that Nemik is dead. With that, Cassian tells Vel about Skeen and tosses the necklace to her, asking her to give it back to Luthen. According to him, he will take his 200,000 credits as promised by Luthen and run away. But before letting him go, Vel gives him Nemik's manifesto, saying that it was his last wish. Episode 6 ends with the ISB and the Senate getting uproarious because of the incident in Aldhani, while Luthen is celebrating this little win for the rebellion. After the successful heist in the Aldhani garrison, Cassian decides to come home to pick Maarva and Bee up so they can escape altogether. But to his surprise, his mother chooses to stay. What will Cassian do? This is the last 6 episodes of the Disney Plus original Star Wars Andor. Due to the recent events in Aldhani, the ISB conducts an emergency meeting. At this time, Admiral Yularen states that to reimpose public order, the tribute tax of any sector that's harboring partisan activity will be 5 times the amount stolen from the garrison. Also, use of any local custom or traditional festivity as cover for rebel activity will result in the permanent revocation of Imperial tolerance. Then, the Emperor will convene an emergency session of the Senate to propose a law that will allow the ISB to use any means necessary to deal with and take down anti-Imperial activities. In the meantime, the ISB will implement the Public Order Resentencing Directive, also known as PORD, in the entire Empire. In this sense, any criminal offense, even those that don't affect the Empire, will be deemed as Class 1 offense. Because of that, every fine must be paid in full immediately, and the duration of prison sentences will be re-evaluated. Afterward, Dedra is not happy with the outcome of the meeting, stating that they're actually playing in the hands of the rebels. She believes that the overreaction to the Aldhani incident is exactly what the rebels wanted. Meanwhile, Mon visits Luthen in his gallery and asks if he has something to do with the heist in the garrison. Vaguely confirming nor denying it, Luthen just says that rebellion is expensive and they need funds. Mon, on the other hand, thinks that it will make it harder for her to push laws that will prioritize the welfare of the citizens because the Empire will now focus on strengthening and flexing its power, hence the people will suffer. Just then, Luthen declares that it's exactly what they need so the people will finally wake up and see how cruel and unjust the Empire is. Later on, Clea, Luthen's assistant, meets with Vel, who turns out to be Senator Mon's cousin. Clea commends her and her team for their work, but she orders her to find and kill Cassian as he is now a threat to them because he knows about Luthen's involvement in the rebellion. Speaking of Cassian, he goes home to Ferrix and Maarva, tells him that Ferrix is under full Imperial authority now. Hearing this, Cassian states that he now has enough credit for them to escape to a new sector where nobody knows them. Surprised, Maarva is speechless, so he tells her to rest first and that they will move the next morning. Afterward, Cassian goes to meet Bix, who tells him that Ferrix is not safe for him because the people blamed him for all the chaos from before. In this sense, anyone can snitch on him and alert any patrolling stormtrooper or Imperial guard for the reward. On his way home, he hears stormtroopers coming, so he quickly hides. Just then, Cassian remembers how his father was hanged by the Empire just because he stopped some protesters that were throwing rocks at the stormtroopers. The following day, Cassian is ready to leave, but is surprised to know that Maarva is not coming with him. According to her, she decided that she will stay to join the rebellion and fight the Empire. As it turns out, the heist in Aldhani inspired her enough to fight for Ferrix and the memories of Clem. In turn, Cassian says it will be hard for him to leave because he will worry about her, but Maarva insists on staying. Yet, before he goes, his mother tells him to stop looking for his sister, pointing out that there were no survivors in Kenari back when they took him. With that, he leaves Ferrix without his mother and goes to Niamos. Unfortunately, Cassian gets caught immediately by a shore trooper after he is falsely accused of being part of an anti-Imperial activity in the area. And because of PORD, the original 6-month sentence in his charges becomes 6 years. Meanwhile, another meeting is being held in ISB wherein Dedra is insisting again on the connection of the recent thefts of Imperial military components to anti-Imperial activities. Upon presenting evidence to back her claim up, Partagaz finally gives her a go signal to proceed with the investigation and transfers the jurisdiction of Morlana 1 under her. Because of that, she immediately calls on Karn, who's now working in the corporation, to know everything that happened in Ferrix. In this sense, ISB is now aware of the existence of Cassian. Aside from that, they are now also onto the man that was with him during the chaos that they cannot identify just yet, referring to Luthen. Given the moniker Axis, Dedra declares that he's their shot into taking down the rebellion once and for all. On the other hand, over Senator Mon's place, a gathering is being held. There, she talks to her trusted friend, Tay, about the problem with her account. As it turns out, Mon continues with this plan of hers despite Luthen's vocal disapproval. Afterward, Mon takes the opportunity to get into other senators' good graces for them to give her their votes for the upcoming session. Going back to Cassian, he's now transferred to Narkina 5 where he will spend his 6-year sentence working every day. To his confusion, the guard orders him and the other prisoners to remove their shoes. As it turns out, the floor in the prison is made up of tungsten steel, and electrocuting them will be their punishment if they do something wrong. There, he meets Kino, the head of their shift. Kino then takes him to his table where he meets his team consisting of Jembok, Saul, Taga, Yulaf, Ham, and Nelshi. Together, along with other tables, they are working on star-shaped equipment that is, for some reason, very important to the Empire. 1 month later, Cassian has fully adapted to the work and environment in a labor prison. However, it is also revealed that he's already working on an escape plan with other prisoners. Meanwhile, Bix, Brasso, and the daughter of Ferrix, a social club where Maarva was the former president, are all taking care of her in Cassian's absence. At this time, Bix tries to contact Luthen to ask about Cassian, but Clea tells him that it's dangerous to keep the communication with Ferrix open. Because of that, he is forced to cut the line down, leaving Bix hanging. Also, Vel and Cinta are already on the sector and are waiting for his arrival, not knowing that he's imprisoned somewhere in the galaxy. Some time later, the noise of metal craps rings over Ferrix. Bix immediately goes to where the commotion is and finds out that the Imperial guards took Salman last night to the hotel where they made it their base of operation. To make matters worse, the officer identifies her and orders her arrest as well. They then take her to the hotel where she sees Salman wasted and almost dying. Dedra orders the guards to take him outside, but the officer suggests putting him down for good instead, and she lets him be. After that, Dedra starts questioning Bix about the whereabouts of Cassian. But she refuses to cooperate, resulting in Dedra putting a device in her ear that emits a mind-torturing noise that hurts people's brains, which is the same torture method they used on Salman to get the information they need out of her. When they're done, Dedra reminds the officer that they need to keep Bix alive so she can identify access for them. Then, she flies back to Coruscant to report everything she discovered to Major Partagas, ultimately connecting Cassian's thievery of the Starpath unit to his involvement in the Aldhani incident. Concurrently, at the Senate, Mon declares her opposition to the declaration of PORT. And despite her efforts to gather votes, most of the senators approved of this move of the Empire to secure their power. After the session, Mon is visibly disappointed, but what surprises her more is when her driver tells her that her cousin is in her house. Due to that, she goes home immediately to see Vel. Mon is worried about her, but Vel insists that her duty to the rebellion is her priority. According to her, she just came here to see her and settle for a short while. Hearing this, the senator reminds her that she still needs to show to the public that she's a spoiled rich girl so the ISB or the Empire will not be suspicious of her constant absence. Over at Narkina 5, a new man is dropped on Cassian's shift after one of them offed himself last night. Knowing that the elevator only goes down every time the guards will pick up the dead or bring a new man, Cassian tells another prisoner that either of the two circumstances is their only chance of getting out of the labor room. After their shift, Taga is conversing with another prisoner at level 2 using sign language. According to them, something is going down in level 2. Just then, a short power interruption occurs, but the prisoners are just ordered to go back to their quarters. There, Cassian tries to convince Kino into joining his plan to escape. However, Kino believes that he will be released soon so he doesn't want to risk being a fugitive. The next day, a rumor starts spreading that everyone on level 2 is electrocuted to death. In the meantime, in Mon's residence, Tay visits the senator to tell her that he finds a way for her to get out of trouble. However, it might get ugly for her and her reputation. As it turns out, Tay talked to a man named Davo who will be their cover story as to why she had a huge gap in her account. Mon calls the man a thug, but Tay says he's the best shot they got. At this time, she asks what Davo asked in return, and to her surprise, he told Tay that he just wanted an audience with the senator in her house. Left with no other choice, Mon agrees and she meets with Davo. And to her shock, he wants his son to meet her daughter, trying to get the two children to know each other. Knowing this, Mon says she will not do it, but Davo still gives her a chance to think about it. Meanwhile, the ISB catches a rebel pilot that was picked up at a customs check. Because of that, they discovered that there was supposed to be a raid in a power station upon putting a rebel under torture. In this sense, they set up an ambush on one of the rebel leaders named Krieger. After a while, an ISB supervisor, Lieutenant Jung, meets with Luthen, telling him about the agency's plan to take Krieger out. As it turns out, Jung is Luthen's eyes and ears inside ISB, giving him various intel for quite some time already. Unexpectedly, Luthen tells him to get on with it. According to him, if the ambush fails, ISB will know that there's a mole in their ranks and he cannot risk losing Jung inside. Going back to Narkina 5, just as their shift ends, Yulaf suddenly has a stroke. Due to that, Cassian and Kino stay behind to look after him while the others are forced to go back to their quarters. Shortly, a prisoner who's also the medic shows up and finds that it's impossible to save Yulaf at this point. Kino insists that the old man just has a few days in his sentence and he just needs to get through the month so he can go home. However, the medic sadly says Yulaf is the luckiest of them all because he gets to really get out of prison. Hearing this, Cassian realizes that he knows something about what happened in Level 2 and asks him about him. According to the medic, the guards made a mistake by putting somebody who's supposed to be released from Level 4 to Level 2 and somebody recognizes him. Because of that, the guards killed everyone on Level 2 so their secrets will not be revealed. As it turns out, no one really gets to be released and the prisoners are just getting transported to another prison after their sentence. Because of that, Kino finally decides to join Cassian in his plan of breaking out. The following day, by taking advantage of the new man coming down to replace Yulaf, Cassian, and the others set their plan in motion. By destroying the water system, it starts to spill all over the working area. Because of that, when the guard turns on the electric floor upon the commotion starting, the whole room short circuits, eventually disabling the electricity on the floor. With that, everyone starts climbing out of the room and arming themselves. Then, floor by floor and room by room, they start taking down the guards to give other prisoners a chance to escape. Meanwhile, Cassian and Kino take control of the command center where Kino reveals the truth to all the prisoners that nobody is really getting out of prison. But he also encourages them to fight for their own freedom, declaring that this is their only way out. Due to that, every prisoner makes their move and goes to the top floor, eventually reaching the docking station. There they start jumping into the water to swim away from the prison. However, it is revealed that Kino doesn't know how to swim. Yet he's still proud that he leads many men to their freedom. Cassian tries to get to him, but he bumps into some jumping prisoners, causing him to fall to the sea as well. Since then, the prisoners part ways with only Cassian and Nelshi sticking together. After some time, they find two Caridian fishermen that have a ship. Cassian and Nelshi try to run for the ship, but they're caught immediately. The aliens then recognize them as prisoners and plan to turn them in at first. But since they hate the Empire as well for spoiling their water and ruining their livelihood, they let the two men go. Because of that, Cassian takes Nelshi to Nyamos for him to get all the credits that he stashed back at a hotel. He then calls his friend Sanwin through a secret channel and asks him to tell Maarva that he's okay and that he's coming back for her. However, all Sanwin can say to him is that he's feeling sorry for him. Unfortunately, Cassian will never get to see her again because Maarva has already passed away. Everyone in Ferrix is saddened by the news. Brasso and the daughters of Ferrix are the people taking care of his funeral, planning to give her a grandiose one to celebrate her life. In Ferrix, the dead are turned into a brick by mixing their ashes with mortar and local stone dust. Then, they will be put on a wall as if they're becoming a part of Ferrix. Knowing this, Cassian is lost for words and silently goes back to Melshi. Asking if he's okay, he tells him that everything is fine. At this time, Melshi points out that they cannot stop fighting now and that the galaxy should know the truth about the Empire. And with that, they part ways as Melshi goes to spread the truth while Cassian goes home to find his true purpose. Meanwhile, Luthen goes to meet another rebel named Saw to tell him about the impending doom of their colleague Krieger. Hearing it, Saw states that they need to warn him. However, Luthen points out that doing it will put his mole inside ISB at risk and will make the Empire more cautious about them. He also adds that Krieger will be a great sacrifice for the cause as the Empire will see itself as invincible after taking him down. Thinking about it, Saw finally agrees not to warn Krieger about it, seeing the sense in what Luthen is implying. And as Luthen expected, ISB celebrates as soon as they take down Krieger, thinking that no lowly rebel groups can match them ever. Afterward, Luthen receives a call from Kleya, asking him to go home. He, on the contrary, wants to go after Cassian, stating that they will be in trouble if he gets captured. Kleya then reasons that Ferrix is a very dangerous place right now, but Luthen assures her that he will find a way to settle it. However, their call gets interrupted when Luthen gets stopped by an Imperial sector patrol ship. At first, he pretends to be a hauler and presents them with a working ID. But as soon as they pull his ship into theirs using a tractor beam, Luthen fires his thrusters and fights his way out of reach of the patrol. Over at Ferrix, Examwin discreetly tells Brasso that Cassian called him and that he told him about his mother. In turn, Brasso asks if he warns Cassian that going back is extremely dangerous, but Sanwin points out that it was just a short conversation. Unfortunately, Nurchi turns out to notice the two men and starts getting suspicious of them. At the same time, Cinta goes home only to find Vel waiting for her. She says she was about to pick her up from the terminal, but she saw Dedra dressed as a civilian, so she had to follow her. Everyone is anxious about the arrival of Cassian, that no one noticed that he's actually in Ferrix already. Cassian visits the wall memorial of his father, remembering the good things that they had together. After that, he goes to their house where Pegla sees him. After offering his condolences, Pegla shares with him that their house is now for sale. Hearing this, he asks where Bix is, and Pegla tells him that she is imprisoned by the Imperial guards. Overwhelmed, Cassian decides to listen to Nemik's manifesto. According to him, the yearning for freedom occurs spontaneously and without instruction. So, no matter how big or small the action for insurrection is, it is the right way to move forward. Nemik's manifesto ends with him saying that everyone should at least try. The next day, everyone is preparing for the funeral of Maarva. The daughters of Ferrix prepare a band, and the people are lining up to pay their respect to her, while the Imperial guards and the rebels are watching out for any sign of Cassian. Two parties with two different goals are all waiting for Cassian Andor to show up. Karn and Mos, who are pretending to be a civilian, also made an effort to travel to Ferrix after knowing what happened to Cassian's mother. Before the ceremony begins, Dedra makes it clear that he wants Cassian alive, so she orders the snipers to pull out. After that, she just receives the news about the fall of Krieger, but she's not happy that they killed everyone. According to her, they could have gotten more information from the rebels if they put them under questioning or torture. But ISB is more focused on showing their power to the entire galaxy, so they didn't think of that, not knowing that this is what Luthen wants. Speaking of whom, Luthen arrives in Ferrix. Meanwhile, Brasso meets with Cassian, who's in hiding with the help of Pegla. At this time, Cassian starts venting out his regrets, stating that they argue before he left and that he shouldn't have left her at all. Brasso, on the other hand, tells him that everything is fine and that Maarva passed peacefully. According to him, Maarva says that none of this is Cassian's fault. She also says that Cassian already knows everything he needs to know and feels everything that he needs to feel. And with that together, Maarva believes that Cassian will be an unstoppable force for good. At this time, the two friends part ways as Brasso prepares for the funeral while Cassian makes his way to save Bix at the hotel. However, Nurchi notices that Pegla is acting suspiciously and realizes that Cassian must be with him earlier. In that sense, he tips the Imperial guards about the last location of Pegla, assuring them that Cassian is there. But as they check on it, no one is in there. Yet, Dedra is too smart and keen not to see where Cassian ran off, so she immediately orders the Imperial guards to go after him. At this time, the ceremony for Maarva's funeral begins. The people of Ferrix gather in the plaza to witness Maarva's last message to all of them. Unfortunately for Bix, all she can do is listen from the hotel. At the same time, the Imperial guards, stormtroopers, and death troopers also mobilize to keep the people in line. As B goes in the middle, he plays the last recording of Maarva as she tries to stand and stay strong for the last time. Maarva begins her speech by saying how grateful she was for being a daughter of Ferrix, but she also says that they've been cowering for so long. According to her, the greed of the Empire will stop at nothing until they conquer the galaxy like a disease to a human or a rust to a metal. And it is their collective duty to wake up and fight against oppression and injustice. Maarva's message ends with her encouraging everyone to fight the Empire, stating that if she could do it again, she will start fighting them long ago. Because of this, the officer flips B to stop the message from broadcasting, so Brasso retaliates. This then causes a riot to occur. At this time, Wilman throws a makeshift explosive at the Imperial guards as revenge for killing his father. In turn, an officer orders the troopers to open fire, killing many civilians. But they're not afraid to fight back as they are all empowered by Maarva's words. They even catch Dedra and are about to beat her to death, but she's luckily saved by Karn. While all of this is happening, Cassian finally rescues Bix and takes her to the shipyard where Pegla, Brasso, B, Wilman, and Maarva's friend, Jezzy, are waiting for them so they can escape altogether. But to Brasso's surprise, Cassian will not go with them. Yet, he promises that he will find them soon. And with that, Pegla releases the ship, allowing the others to escape Ferrix while he and Cassian stay behind. Meanwhile, Luthen, Vel, and Cinta find their way to escape the chaos. After a while, Luthen finally reaches his ship. But just as he boards his ship, he finds out that Andor is actually waiting for him. Knowing that Luthen wants to kill him, Andor says that he will not bother fighting back if he still wishes to do it. But if he will not, Cassian tells Luthen that he needs to take him in. Hearing this, Luthen smiles as he knows that a man like Cassian Andor will be a great asset to the rebellion. Just as Mon finally agrees to the terms of Davo for her to continuously support the endeavor of the rebellion. Season 1 ends with the revelation that the star-shaped components that Cassian and the others were making back in Narkina 5 are actually for the construction of a Death Star. The first season of Andor received a 96% rating from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes. By providing a well-grounded perspective of life during the Empire's time, the series managed to tackle serious real-life historical and political matters maturely. However, being in the middle of a big franchise/universe is a challenge to invite some audience. But since the show is done from the perspective of a normal guy, it's not hard to connect and root for him. Hence, it will be easy to digest the whole series. Overall, Andor is a really great series for both fans and those who want to try to immerse themselves in the Star Wars universe.